Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. Things are back to quiet today in Hong Kong, although there is some disturbance in some subway stations. It's a beautiful day, it's Wednesday the 21st of August. And first thing first, on the wrist, I have the beautiful, mighty Rolex Air King. I finally found the right fit. So let me insert a quick video for those interested about how I got the right fit. So finally I've gotten the right fit for my Rolex Air King. At first I had two links removed at the AD, which is what I normally do at on all my Rolex watches. But it felt a bit tight. I thought it was just because of the holiday and overeating. So I had the Easy Link opened all the time. And it was just about okay. I could just about put a finger in between the wrist and the watch. But back in Hong Kong, I wanted to get a bit more relief. So I went to an AD and they added back one link. And then it felt very floppy. So I asked them to move the anchoring point inside the clasp. So this, in case you've never seen this, there are three, trying to find an angle to show you, three small anchoring points within the clasp. Here it's on the outside one. There's one there in the middle, and then there's one over there. 1, 2, 3. This is the simple clasp, which you'll find on the date just as well. And so I had it moved to the most inward point, and it wasn't just quite right. It was still a bit floppy, and because the watch is fairly thick, you kind of want it to be set fairly tight, close to the wrist, because there's not enough counterbalance on the bracelet, I believe. So you want it nicely planted close to the wrist. So what I did myself is I removed that link again, and I moved the anchoring point to the outward, the most outward point there. So not in the middle as it comes stock, but this way. And those, let's try to zoom in a bit better. Yeah, you see, 1, 2, and 3. So now it's here. It came from here. We tried that, and I'm a bit more comfortable when it's there because there's less risk of the clasp itself damaging the bracelet, something I've seen on other watches if it directly goes out from the last anchoring point. And so from there and removing a link, so I'm back to having two links removed. And all I had to do from the beginning was just to move the anchoring point one level. And the difference between those 2 points is not half a link. It is only, it seems to be a bit less than that. So now I have two comfortable fits. When I close the Easy Link, it's a nice snap. This is the fit when I'm at the office and the wrist tends to get a bit thinner because of the air conditioning, and it's nice and tight. And this morning when I woke up, my wrist was very swollen after the shower and going out, and so then I just popped out the Easy Link like this. It's hard to do on camera. There you go. And then the watch have just a bit of relief, and you see now it's a bit too much relief because it's very cold in the office. So I'm back to having two great fits. So, and you can do it yourself. Just be very careful what tools you use. The thing is, the little axis here, it's smaller than your usual pin tool. You know, the one you use inside here. So that was a bit tricky, so I used the other end of my tool, the one with just a straight little metal point there, and that did the trick. And so yeah, there you go. Don't be afraid to try. And if you're not sure what you're doing, just go to an AD. Bring your warranty card just in case they're being a bit annoying. In this case, they didn't even care, and they just did what I asked. And there you go. And back to this beautiful view of Hong Kong. And there was a great article this morning. I wanted to talk about it in the South China Morning Post. An interview with Henry Litton, a former judge in Hong Kong, who really summarizes and gives a great perspective on the movement and everything that's been happening. And his view, and I think he's quite right, is that two things. One, the protesters' demands are somewhat futile, and I think they live in some sort of utopia, and that's not. It's one of the problems of this protest is that it's not doesn't have a clear demand, something that can actually be given to them, and I think they're missing the big picture and what really is possible to achieve here. So they've been asking for freedom, for democracy, something that the communist is not going to give them. There's also been asking for a public inquiry about the police response, the violent response of the police. And as a judge, Henry Litton knows well that this type of thing can take months, years, thousands of depositions and testimonies in courts, cops against students who have been filmed when they had a mask on. So who are you going to trust? It's just going to be he said, she said, and it won't lead to any possible outcome that will please anybody. And the government is already taking the wrong way, wanting to appoint a judge rather than taking things into their own hands. Speaking of the government, Henry Litton points out how little action they've been taking, not only during the protest, but also for the past 10, 20, 30 years here in Hong Kong, against property prices exploding. They're again at a new high. The greed of the developers, of the landlords, Hong Kong people themselves, the parents of those protesters, has no end. And so much so that it's just impossible for pretty much anybody to buy a decent, reasonably sized home. And the government is doing nothing about it. It's doing nothing about employment for young people, which are disillusioned now. And it's doing nothing. When you see the city here, some posh buildings, already when you go down there, you see 80-year-old women pushing carts full of trash. Don't tell me there's not a better way to take care of these people, that they have to work in those conditions. Then you have a lot of people begging for money on the streets, people living in basically cages on the other side of town. This is a Hong Kong island, and on the other side you have Kowloon, which is on the land, if you will. And meanwhile, the government sits on billions in reserves and get into these big projects, railway, highways, and some of them work, some of them are abandoned. It's very disheartening for the youth, and it's probably at the cause of the general unease. And this extradition bill was just a thing that lit the fire to all that. Now, to me, Hong Kong is not the big economic, strategic city that it used to be for Beijing. The neighboring Shenzhen is much bigger, and there are much bigger cities all around China, which made me think that Beijing would probably want to keep Hong Kong as a Western-friendly, a point of entry location, as they are trying to open up to the rest of the world. crushing it would just go against their interest. And this whole protest, the violence, it really goes against the interest of everybody. If you can keep things in order and quiet, that's going to please the central government. I'm not saying you have to be a crony of the communist, but face it, 2047, this one country, two system sort of bit of independence that Hong Kong has is coming to an end. And Henry Lytton says, why not fight to try to extend this period to 50 more years, 100 more years, and keep this separate system in terms of politics, economics, and social. And I think that's the way forward indeed, and something that Beijing could be on board with. Now the protest, great, it put some great pressure and it raised awareness worldwide. From there we have to move on to some real demand, something objectively possible. Just demanding freedom. I mean, this city is not free from China. It depends on China a lot for food, electricity, for everything. So whether you want it or not, it is very depending on China. And I think there's a way forward. It's already awash with mainland money. I used to work down there, and we had to move away. My Western company had to move away because we couldn't afford the rents anymore. And now it's a mainland company who's renting the place. And same for the building I used to live in. Now it's completely fully owned by mainland landlords. And everybody here starts speaking Mandarin everywhere. So in one way or another, the city is changing, and I guess the word is gentrification. I hope I'm using this word right. It is becoming a lot more influenced by China. Anyway, yeah, great interview of Henry Lytton. Do have a read. I think he's finally someone who's putting things in proper perspective, looking at the future, and slamming the government, who has been so useless during this protest, and who has brought it on itself, doing absolutely nothing against property prices, and to give the youth of Hong Kong a strong prospect for a good future. So let me know what you think of it. Have a read, whether you're in Hong Kong or elsewhere. I think because this is in the news every day is going to be interesting for anyone. And one last time, the Rolex hacking up here, almost in the cloud, really. All right, signing off. Have a good day. Bye bye.